For those of you who are joining us for the first time or are new to the Tech Council, the San Francisco Tech Council is a multi-sector initiative, and we build government, business, nonprofit, and consumer collaboration to advance digital inclusion for seniors and adults with disabilities in San Francisco so all can participate in the city's connected community. Our final speaker today is Wesley Cheng. He is a founder of televisit.org, which is a not-for-profit organization that focuses on social engagement for people with mild cognitive impairment. And they do that through connecting individuals to each other through a tablet device from the convenience and comfort of their own home. So I think Wesley can best describe televisit.org, and I think you'll find it an interesting platform, and hopefully there'll be opportunities to discuss further with Wesley ways that we can support that through some of our activities here at the Tech Council. So Wesley, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew, and thank you all for your time. Yes, I am the founder and executive director for Televisit, and our mission has been to build virtual communities. We've been doing this for 9 years, and one of the things that Dan said really struck me. He talked about invisible people, particularly those who may have some cognitive issues, and that really is the word that we use to describe the segment of the population that I work with the most. Is primarily older adults with some kind of cognitive or physical issues that really makes it hard for them to get out. And therefore they're stuck at home, they're isolated, they're feeling lonely. How do we reach inside their home to connect them? And the way we thought about doing that is to build virtual communities. And it's become really, really much more serious with the pandemic, because now by definition, almost everyone is isolated and many of them are feeling lonely at the same time. The standard pandemic response from a lot of organizations has been, well, let's give them Zoom and that they will be joining all these activities that we've had, but they'll just do it online and we're good. Or another one you may have heard is we'll just give them an Amazon Dot and they will take care of themselves because there's a device that sounds like a real person. Unfortunately, the statistics have borne out that many people, especially the most vulnerable people, have not been able to join. Why? And I think the reason is because there's been a lot of focus on access. Let's give them a device. Let's give them internet access. And those are really important, but we've not really thought about what does it mean to give them accessibility to the services, to groups that they can support each other, especially during this pandemic. So I work with the most vulnerable people. Many of them have some kind of cognitive decline. And even if we don't, statistically, with the number of seniors growing older every year, a very large population, the statistics shown about half of older adults over 85, and it's a large and growing population, experience some kind of cognitive decline. And what happens is that they'll have a lack of initiative and frustration with learning new technology. I'll give you an example here. We have a 99-year-old lady who is absolutely wonderful in everything that she does. She's actually quite fit and cognitively on the outside looks like she's doing great, but she always forgets when an activity starts. And she calls us on a regular basis because she forgets and she doesn't want to miss out. And we tell her, don't worry about it. We will call you. We always call you, but she still calls us anyway because she forgets. And that's one of the main things we've learned is that we always have to take the initiative to start any activity. Secondly, of course, low income, which I know the San Francisco Tech Council has been working with other partner organizations to try and figure out how can we give access to some of these individuals. But the third and very important one that has actually been forgotten by a lot of people or not known is that many of these people who've been isolated and are lonely for a long time, their brains actually change. In fact, loneliness researcher John Cacioppo has actually published a lot of research and written a book that shows that under the MRI that people who are lonely have brains that change. And what happens is they become very suspicious. So even if you lay out this veritable menu and buffet of wonderful virtual activities out there, they're not going to join because they're so suspicious and afraid of what's out there. If they won't even let people into their home, how are they going to join some of these virtual activities? And we had to figure out, how do we solve that? And we've been working on this problem for 9 years, and we believe we found an innovative way to do that. So Televisit's a nonprofit consisting of kind of three things: technology that we developed, a methodology, and content. So the technology is as simple as a phone, a plain old, phone, telephone service phone, a POTS phone, which you can use. Or, as Andrew said, we also have a solution that works with tablets, and it can be Android or iOS. And we put our app in what's called kiosk mode, which means that it's the only app that comes up when the tablet starts. So you don't have to ever worry about using Android. Dan, you were saying something earlier too, that tech was very accessible when the internet first came about, but it's become less accessible today. And I gotta say, the same thing applies to some of these devices. When the iPhone came out, it was so much easier. When Android first came out, it was so much easier. Then what happened is, over the years, they added so much new functionality. Now you have to know what's the right way to swipe. How many fingers do you need to use to swipe it up, down, sideways? That you get really confused. And what we've learned is that many older adults in particular, and people with some cognitive issues, they will get confused and they will accidentally do something. And this happens a lot. They accidentally turn off the volume and they don't know how to get it back. And they're really frustrated by this whole thing because it's some super secret sequence that they didn't know what they did and they don't know how to get back. So what we did is we made sure that it was so easy that they didn't need to do a thing. Well, first, of course, the easiest thing is the phone. For the most part, most people have a phone and it rings. Again, they don't have to join anything. We call them once we talk to them and have an agreement that we're going to call them twice a week, and we're going to have a 30-minute conversation with a group of people, okay? And we'll connect them automatically to an audio conference. They don't have to remember when to call or to dial a whole bunch of digits or symbols. And we give them a physical workbook with activities. They love that. It's a very familiar paradigm. And that's one of the key things we know about accessibility is don't change the paradigm. Just use paradigms they're already used to. And one of the things we do is, for our tablet, we call it a talking photo frame. For many of the people we deal with, they've never used a computer in their life, and they don't see the need to learn how to use one right now. So we don't call it a computer. We call it a photo frame. And in fact, when we have it in the house, all they need to do is basically plug it in. And it's a standard, in this case, it's just a standard Android tablet. You can use a $40 Amazon Fire tablet if you wanted to. And with our app, we pull photos up from our server, we show them the photos, and when it's time to join an activity, it's one button. Literally, that was the user interface that we designed. It's one button, it comes up, it rings, you press the join button. Oh, by the way, if you don't want to join, it's okay. You just press the exit button, or if you don't press the exit button, it'll eventually stop ringing like a phone. Very, very simple. One button was all that is required. And then you can be joined into a music program where we play music from the 30s to the 50s to the 60s. Or the favorite, of course, is bingo. You can basically just press the button there and you can see the bingo buttons. If you have some hearing issues, you can see in the top left-hand corner, the number that's being called actually will show up so you can play along with it as well. We can play any arbitrary YouTube video or play any website, so that if you're not used to, a computer and knowing how to type https:// blah, 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 you don't have to do that. The host does everything for you. We take control of everything. And in fact, we call it a radio show. Again, a paradigm that many older adults are used to when they were young, sitting next to a radio, listening and enjoying a show. Well, we call them and we call it a radio show. And after we're done showing them some of these programs, we have a conversation. And this is really the heart of what we do to create community, is we have conversation among these older adults to make sure that they have community, that they are supporting each other. And we've had people who've had cancer for 7 times who basically said, I really enjoy this community because I can share everything to you guys. And one of the greatest success stories is that we've had a group that's been going on for 6 years nonstop. And they're still going on today. And when the pandemic hit, they suddenly realized they had a community of people to talk to. And we can talk about the weather, about the fires, about everything that's going on. The latest project we're working on is video conferencing. We actually didn't have that initially because the feedback we got from many of the older adults was that they didn't want to be seen. They didn't want a camera to be turned on so that they can enjoy breakfast in their pajamas. And in fact, when we went and visited some of these seniors, they recognized that there was a camera on these tablets. And even though we told them we didn't turn it on, they would take a piece of masking tape and they would tape over the camera. Okay. Well, thanks to the pandemic and Zoom, everybody now wants video conferencing. So we've added the capability, but we made it so simple that they didn't need email, because you kind of need email to get the link for the Zoom. You don't have to remember when to join. Once again, if they have cognitive issues, they don't remember when to join. You just listen to the tablet, it rings, you hit one button, and suddenly you're in a video conference. And by the way, you don't have to go fiddle around and worry about volume, camera controls, or anything else. And finally, in the end of the day, it's like a photo frame. It goes off. It automatically powers off by itself. And the next morning, it automatically powers on again. You don't even have to worry about the power button. That's how simple we decided we needed to make it. Literally, the one thing I told the developers is one button and only one button to join. The second key part of what we did is we developed over the last 9 years a methodology to build trusted communities. At the end of the day, we're dealing with people here. We're not dealing with robots. And we realized and learned how we needed to basically connect these people to develop relationships. First, you needed a trained facilitator. You can't just put a bunch of people together and expect magic to happen. It doesn't happen. And it takes about 2 months, sometimes 3 months, for us to basically slowly invite people. And the next one is really key. We needed to build familiarity. So it's the same group twice a week, then we do different things. And what they don't realize is happening is that by building familiarity, it's engendering trust, which is the most important thing when you're working with people, especially isolated and lonely people who've developed such a sense of distrust in the community. You develop the trust slowly, learning about each other, and then you start to support each other and build that community. There are no shortcuts to this. There is no instant community that happens. And finally, meaningful content. We can't just get together twice a week and say, hey, how you doing? Doesn't work. You need some structure. And here are some things we found over the years that is a favorite. Music, wonderful, brings back memories. We allow them to talk about it after we play some of the music. We work with another organization, a nonprofit that has the license to all the music, and they put together some of these shows that we show and we play for the audience. Reminisce activities, going down memory lane, talking about all the wonderful things. They love that, all the stories that they tell. Travel, bingo, word games, the little brain games that we do, and education, even things like we talked about disaster and emergency preparedness. We talk about that. We talk about preparing your home so that there's less risk of you falling down, for instance. So we've come up with a whole bunch of content that we put into this printed workbook that we send to everyone. Finally, the validation. Like I mentioned, we've been running twice weekly sessions for 9 years with a very low dropout rate. The longest running group has been 6 years continuously. One quick story, we started a new group about a month and a half ago. And it wasn't an easy group, I'll be honest with you. Many of them said, oh, I don't need this right now. This is the middle of the pandemic. Yes, you need it. No, I don't need it. I'm okay. You know, we'll call me later, right? Well, it started with 3 people, then 4 people, then 5 people. We slowly got them in. How did we do that? We just kept calling them, okay? And not in a bugging way, but we just kept calling them. And the call ID shows us as Televisit or the name of the organization that we work with. And very slowly they said, you know what, I think I'll just pick up and see what's going on. And they realize they have a lot of fun with it. So we're starting to build this core. Once again, there is no shortcut to this. I call what we're doing training wheels and pool noodles. You know, if you've ever tried to learn how to ride a bicycle or how to swim, you realize that the first time you had to do it, you know, when we were very young, it's terrifying. And to tell some of these older adults who've never done this, that, you know what, we'll give you a tablet or a computer and the internet, it's no problem. You'll figure it out. It's terrifying for them. What if we said to them instead, there's nothing to learn. There's a picture frame. You're used to this. We'll call you. You don't have to call us, and you just press one button. Can you do that? Yes. And that's what we call our training wheels and our pool noodles. The other thing that we've done in the pandemic is we have created a protocol where we can set all this up without entering the home at all. For instance, what we typically do, and these homes happen to have Wi-Fi, by the way, we would go near the home, we would call them ahead of time, we would get the Wi-Fi information, the SSID, the password, if they have it, hopefully they do. We would set it up outside, they would see us doing it through the window, and then we would put it on the doorstep and back away. And while we're on the phone, we say, can you take the tablet in and plug it in? That's the only thing you need to do. Can you plug it in? And the answer always, of course. We've never had a problem with people plugging it in. And once we do that, we're done. Okay, that's the only thing they need to do. By the way, if at some point some of these older adults happen to know how to learn how to use Android or to use the computer and they want more function, they really want to get on some of these other Zoom calls, they really want to use the browser to do other things, it's very simple. The only thing we do that's different is we put a piece of insulation tape. Literally, we went to Home Depot, we got a roll of insulation tape, and we covered up those 3 buttons in Android that give you access to the system so that they don't have to accidentally touch it. Well, if you're ready and we've done enough training with Televisit and you're ready to go on, then rip off the insulation tape. That's it. It takes 1 second and you have full access. We haven't changed it. This is not a dumbed down, simplified version. And if you're not ready to do that, you can keep your training wheels, keep it in Televisit mode. Finally, the one thing that I mentioned too is the digital divide is not just about access, it's also psychosocial, particularly the most vulnerable people, the invisibles, you know, Dan was talking about. Those people, they need more than just putting something in front of them. They need us to call them and gently persuade them as a friend to build that familiarity and that trust. And then they will join some of these activities, because loneliness fundamentally is a psychosocial issue, not simply a lack of technology. Thanks very much. I'll pause right here if there are any questions.
Well, Wesley, first of all, thanks very much. Fascinating kind of platform, and I like the way that you've designed it in a way that it is accessible and fits very well with our theme here today. We did have one question just about some of the content issues, just like, do you focus on civic engagement, for example, rather than a retrospective look into the past, and have people more engaged in current issues that might be more action-oriented in ways that they could, you know, develop relationships, etc.?
We do actually have, a lot of what we do is dependent on the group. So we have a lot of content, hundreds and types of different content. But what we do is like to do things easy. So we do a lot of icebreaker type things like the reminisce and the bingo and the travel. We do a lot of the icebreaker things for quite a while because we need these folks to really build that rapport with each other. And then, yes, they will say, you know, in month 3 and 4, we'll say, what are some things you want to talk about? And yes, we have definitely done things. We don't have an agenda where we're pushing a specific civic agenda, for instance, so we don't actually do that. We do have organizations that use our platform, AACI, the Asian American Community Involvement Organization with 400 members. They're using that. They have some specific things that they're doing with content that, you know, we're not responsible for that. But certainly we welcome partners to come in and use our platform and put their own content.
Okay. Thank you.